I was getting excited about my wife getting pregnant, and I said, you know what, I need a bit more energy. So I've been
So
like
you took
natural
400
for,
tests.
yeah, yeah. So I've been natural for 4 years or 3 years or whatever, 3 years. So, and I used to me before 400 was a. Let's discuss what I've been doing at the gym. So basically, it's all been a mistake, really. What happened was I was getting excited about my wife getting pregnant, and I said, you know what, I need a bit more energy. So I've been
So
like
you took
natural
400
for,
tests.
yeah. So I've been natural for 4 years or 3 years or whatever, 3 years. So, and I used to me before 400 was a HRT dose. So I thought that okay, I'll start with 400 and HCG and FSH. Ended up in a like a, I don't know what to describe it as, like a sex drive from hell.
Yeah.
Couldn't work. Couldn't. I
Oh
was like, what am
yeah.
I?
I can imagine when you're deprived too and you're not used to it. Like when you're everyone remembers their first cycle and it feels like you hit puberty again with your sex drive. And eventually you sort of like acclimate to the heightened androgen exposure where your sex drive isn't like as ridiculous. But when you like first do it after being natural for years, like it was probably you probably couldn't do anything. You're probably just thinking about sex all fucking day.
Yeah, two comments about that. I was really happy to notice that because for the audience to know, when you use high levels of testosterone, your sex drive acclimates, and then when you go back, if you're using 750 and you go back down to 200, you're actually like hyposexual compared to what you used to be normally. So you really adapt. And I thought we would never desensitize from that. I guess I did a lot, but also the stupidity that I had was I added the HCG and the FSH, which increased sex drive way more than testosterone. So
Yeah.
basically I was dead for like 2 weeks. After that, I was like, I'm not touching that again. I never injected testosterone again. And since then, actually, even I've been like, honestly, not so consistent with the HCG and FSH, but I've been doing it. But I've been doing it enough to get that resiliency. So anyway, the reason why I started all this, I was like, I want resilience. I'm going to have a baby. I need a lot of energy. I need to go do things. And I got that. But then I also started thinking like, I should go to the gym. And I don't know how these things came about.
Should put it to work at least.
I think it was because I got tired. We couldn't cycle here. You know, we were locked down and all that stuff, and the gym's open. But anyway, I went to the gym. And what happens when you go to the gym is that you realize, wait a minute, this sucks working out without hormones. This is really bad. And I was like, I'm already on hormones. I have HCG and FSH, so I could add a little something here or there. So that's how the oral thing started. And basically, since then, I've experimented sometimes with some injectables just to try things for clients. But basically, I've been using probably less than like 300 milligrams a week or 350, but mostly pre-workout short-acting drugs.
And from like a health standpoint, like frankly, that's other than the fact that you're using some like the most carcinogenic drug ever through Anadrol, but like the actual thought process behind the cycle design is actually probably the healthiest thing on paper when you look at your biomarkers from like a lipid standpoint, from a SHBG standpoint. Like HCG, for example, is like so much more tolerable on all those metrics. Like when you see for example, a guy who's doing TRT versus the equivalent total T from HCG monotherapy, it's like the biomarkers are so much cleaner on HCG. Maybe you don't get better body composition because you have maybe a disproportionately lower free from, less SHBG and whatnot, but like your lipids are going to be so much better. Your SHBG is going to be better. A lot of things are going to be a lot more in line when you don't have just like a heightened level of testosterone from the exogenous shot. And I imagine your HDL is probably like way better than it would be otherwise on an equivalent dose of like exogenous T.
Well, my HDL was like 150 before I started, or 130. So it was very high. So it did decrease a lot. But what I did though, Derek, once I took that first injection of testosterone, see, I used to take a statin, like a baby statin, twice a week. I used to be very conservative. The day I took it, I took 20 milligrams of rosuvastatin, and I began like a very intense therapy. So my LDL is probably like 30 or 40 or so. So I'm not too concerned about that. And then I have
30.
Yeah, very, very low. It's very low because I take 20 rosuvastatin daily, which I don't need. I have a protective polymorphism, and then I have a ezetimibe. So I have very little.
So the interesting thing about that though then is too, like, even if on paper your biomarkers are better because you're using things that stimulate endogenous production, when you're crushing your lipids or your LDL specifically with statins, aren't you like severely inhibiting your response from a performance standpoint and any kind of ergogenic aid when you are smashing the thing that HCG is like kind of leveraging to actually create testosterone? Like your substrate for steroidogenesis is like in the ground, but you're relying on endogenous processes to get the effects you're trying to get out of your PED essentially.
That's a good point. You would think the inhibition of cholesterol, but it's not. I mean, I guess it's enough. I guess it's enough cholesterol. I haven't noticed that. I haven't even, but I wasn't using HCG before this.
So then there's like a slight argument from that aspect. If you're like aggressively modulating lipids with medications, then you might almost be better off with like a bit of HCG, a bit of FSH, and a bit of test.
Yeah, probably. But the thing is this, I just haven't needed it. I mean, like judging by my mood has been great, and I have a lot more energy, honestly, than before I used HCG. But then in terms of the gym, I've been going to the gym for 4 months, and I haven't went for 2 weeks, by the way. I don't know why, but I've been going for 4 months, and I've been gaining really fast. I mean, it's muscle memory, but I don't think I have any anabolic issues because I was gaining.
No, you look fucking huge in your videos with Tony recently. Everyone's like, who's this guy? Even I saw it. I was like, what the fuck am I looking at?
What the fuck,
yeah.
You're 230 now, right? You're 230?
Probably but a little bit fat, you know. I'm not as big as I used to be, but I gained a lot of the muscle back.
No, it was like I thought I accidentally like found like a throwback picture, and I was like, I thought you met Tony like recently. I was like, what the fuck? This is weird. You
know what's weird though? Now I have to ask you guys about this. So I don't know. I've never been recognized in person because I have a tiny channel and I don't expect to be. I'm a normal civilian and stuff. But recently, like a couple of months ago, people have started coming up to me in the gym, like, "Hey, I watch your channel." Usually, do you have a channel? Do you have a podcast with Derek from More Plates, More Dates? Yeah. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's me," and they're like, "Oh, you're Leo." I was like, yeah. So, but a couple of things. Everybody who came up to me is like, "Oh, you're way bigger in person." I don't know. They think I'm some like very small, skinny guy, but they're all.
It's been happening to me like for 10 years. So because they see you on a small screen.
Yeah.
And then they see you in real life. Like recently I did a couple training videos in Padia and people were freaking out. Like, I can't believe how big you are. But dude, I don't realize that I've been going back to the gym for the last 4 months or 3 months. And I went back on cycle also. So yeah,
when we sit here in like a t-shirt or whatever, you're not like trying to really look big necessarily. It comes across way differently. Like I get comments on my channel all the time. It's like, Derek's off cycle. He's way smaller now. And then if I happen to be in like a tank one day, like a tank top, and my delts are out, people are like, "Whoa, like what happened? What are you doing?"
Exactly.
I look exactly the fucking Sam, dude.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's a good thing about not using because imagine you were one of those guys that wears like a skimpy
stringer,
stringer, and
that's me.
No, you don't do that.
Video. What are you talking about?
No, you don't do that.
No, you don't do that. But I show some guns nowadays, but it's hot in Thailand.
On occasion, though, imagine you did it all the time, and then you wanted to like not work out for a while or take a break or something. You can't.
I did, and everybody was hating me. You know that Steve lost all his gains. Well, now they're back, buddy.
So the other day I was at the gym and I was like on a lat pull down machine, and it takes me a long time there, so I sit between the sets. I'm sitting and I see a guy walks by me and then walks by, then turns around, looks at me and comes back. I was trying to pay attention, but then I see him walk in front of me behind the machine, holding his phone, pretending to type, but taking pictures of me as he walks by. I'm like, whoa, man, this is so weird. So then he came back around and took more pictures. But then I was like, what do I do? Should I say something? Has this ever happened to you guys?
Yeah.
It's so weird. Why wouldn't you come say hi to me? I mean, I'm a friendly guy. I don't understand.
I'm really bad at noticing, like, I don't know, like even when I did the pickup artist stuff, like indicators of interest, IOIs, I was always terrible at figuring out like who was looking at me first. So when I would just like go up to girls I thought were attractive, but like even with guys, like I have a hard time telling sometimes like who's looking at me or not. And it's not until they come up to me and say something that I'm aware. But I've never caught somebody like taking a picture of me like inconspicuously, but usually at this point, it's like every time I work out, it's like at least one guy comes up to me.
Is it for you usually? Does it happen to you if you go out with people or you go somewhere in public, or is it the gym?
It's it's obviously way more prevalent at the gym, but now it's at the point where even if I'm in like my buddy's building, I'm in his elevator, it'll be like some random guy. I'm like, shit. Yeah.
That's great. No, so for me, it's been happening for 10 years, but it's because I'm big and living in Asia. So not necessarily due to the YouTube channel.
You stand out like crazy, probably.
Yeah, right. I stand out like a sore thumb. So I get my pictures taken in the SkyTrain and they end up at some men of the SkyTrain Facebook page, and where they start voting on you. Oh, this guy's hot, this kind of stuff or not.
I'm
So
not
that's
ending
been
up on
going
any
on
of that stuff.
for 10 years. It's been going on. So, but of course, I get recognized a little bit. What I'm a little bit worried about is when Thailand opens up again, that a lot of people are going to pop up at the muscle factory, and then want to take me out to dinner and do a workout and that kind of stuff, which unfortunately really don't have time for.
But it's a nice thing. The people that approach me, they're really not. They're really interesting people.
Yes, yeah,
nice
super,
people, yeah.
for sure.
No,
yeah,
most people are like really, really respectful, and they don't want to. They're like mindful that I'm working out, and they don't take up too much of my time. And they'll say, just say like your channel, like love your stuff, like can't believe didn't know you lived here, or like whatever, and take a picture, and that's kind of it. So
that's pretty cool. It's good to have a chat once in a while, to see what they're up to, what they took from the channel, because a lot of people are highly appreciative of the information that we provide. Yeah, it's life-changing information what we provide.
So talking about these cycles, or what may be less harmful or more harmful. So my thoughts, Derek, just to explain to the audience why I use pre-workout androgens. It's mainly because the main reason I'm using them is for fun. I get a lot of enjoyment when I lift weights in the gym. I got to stop lifting heavier weights. But for me, the strength I get in the gym is really what I want. I don't really want to get much bigger or anything like that. So my goal is to minimize, to maximize my experience in the gym and minimize the total oxidative stress to the body and total damage, blood pressure, all these kind of things I do. So that was my approach. But I do think it's valuable to others also, in the sense that short acting compounds, I like to think like this. Like most people need some kind of injectable, if they're bodybuilders or so on, they need an injectable long acting thing for their, for their base, to have some kind of stability, psychological stuff, protein synthesis, so on. But I feel like if you use, instead of like using equipoise, deca, and testosterone your whole off season and using them all in long-acting injectables, you'll adapt as much as your body can to those doses during that time period. At which point you either have to escalate the dose or change the drugs completely. My idea is that shorter acting compounds to some degree, your body may not totally adapt to. So you can bring them in and out in cycles, as opposed to, like for example, the traditional bodybuilding approach to Anadrol. Take 4 weeks of Anadrol, like the Chad Nichols approach. Take 4 weeks of Anadrol, then switch, then take 2 weeks break, then take Danabol, 4 weeks of Danabol. My approach would be like, use Anadrol 3 days a week. And that way it's somewhat out of your system at some point. And that way you can, because I've noticed back in the day, I used to take Anadrol sometimes 2 weeks in a row, and I would notice it stops working. You hold less glycogen, you can see it, and the same with Superdrol or some of these other kind of compounds. So the idea was short acting compounds have some value in the sense that you can introduce something once a week and take it back out, and you could use it potentially longer with less side effects also.
Yeah, I think so, because I've experimented with this with some of my clients to use Anadrol twice a week, pre-workout sublingually, to bring up weaker body parts, and their lipids and liver enzymes barely change. Right, or at least acceptable, with a couple % off, which is, well, you throw in 100 milligrams extra steroids on top, right? You should expect a little bit of a negative health ramifications on your blood work markers, but the results are still very pronounced, but without most of the side effects, especially with compounds like Anadrol or Superdrol, where they suppress your appetite and take away from your liver health.
Now, by the way, on the topic that Steve often mentions about solvents in these oral injectable things, we have seen some evidence recently. So I've been seeing clients' blood work that use injectable like DHB or injectable Superdrol or Anadrol once in a while, but none of my clients use them daily. So I would see C-reactive protein normalized, not major issues. Now, Steve obviously had a client who used injectable Anadrol, and his CRP was 40 or 20 or something like
50,
that, right?
Yeah, 50.
So recently, though, one of my clients turned up a day after he injected an injection with a lot of solvents. And the day after, it showed in the CRP and in the ALT. So there may be short-term effects that I wasn't seeing, even in myself in the last few months. Because
so the CRP goes up for about 4 to 5 days and then returns to baseline. So if you do it like once a week.
In this case, it was returning at least within 3 days. So it was elevating slightly. Okay. Yeah, I was missing it. So so it's possible to miss it. So that's just something for, and then talk about sublingual use. Yeah, I listened to both of you guys. These guys have both been telling me to use it sublingually. So first of all, the reason why I didn't do it before, guys, just to understand my thinking, was I was like, if you put it under your tongue, eventually you're going to swallow it anyway. So I was imagining like 70% is swallowed anyway, 30% gets somewhat absorbed, right?
It depends on what you've prepared it like if you have a pharmacy who made you a troche that's designed for sublingual or buccal, but if you have like a UGL tab and you're like shoving it under your tongue, like I don't know if it would.
So I asked somebody that I know who has troches from a pharmacy of Anadrol, and I asked him, "Is this better absorbed in the mouth?" But he had no response for me. I don't know why he didn't answer. I should have asked you. But anyway, so the point is, I have tried that. What I have noticed is this: I've noticed that if I be a bit excessive and I like literally gargle for 25 minutes while like researching something, I absorb way more than if you do this like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you got to move it around. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's why. So I put the troches underneath my tongue, and then I put the mask on. Right, still a mandate here. Then I drive to the gym, and I vigorously I'd move that around in my mouth.
That's why they call you that.
Yeah, Vigorous Steve. Should get some tobacco in there, and then spit it out. And then I start my workout, and the pumps are phenomenal.
So also I wanted to mention a couple more things about designing healthy cycles. I think.
So wait, did you try the Sublingual, and what happened?
Yeah, I always use it now. I always use it.
So you don't inject it anymore?
No, I was injecting it until recently. That CRP thing scared the hell out of me. So now the thing is, I don't trust the makers. Some of them say we don't use this solvent or we don't use ethyl. I don't believe you, and I can't find out.
Yeah, we use MCT, and then there's still ethylolate in there. Come on, guys,
exactly. So like I think even you are gonna swallow a trace amount of it, or maybe a decent amount.
You will.
Ultimately, you have to consider too, like when they were trying to get around drug testing in the Olympics with the Duchess cocktail, they had like this solution that they would swish around your mouth with. I think it was like oral trenbolone. They swapped it out for turinabol, which used to be in it. They had it was metenolone, as well as I forget what it was. It might have been Superdrol or metenolone. I forget what it is. But anyway, like the idea was to like not get trace amounts swallowed. So like there is historical evidence of even like top athletes doing this to avert like the first pass in the liver. And granted, they're using like they were adding it in like a shot, and they were like swishing it around their mouth rather than a troche. But they didn't have like a pharmacy creating troches for them that are designed for sublingual absorption anyway. So like you will probably get some trace amounts, but ultimately like this is the tried and true method for like actual pharmaceuticals that are designed to skip first pass. And ultimately you will get a different pharmacokinetic profile out of it to some extent. And it's going to be more representative of IV administration, which to me sounds pretty fucking ideal for getting it in and out of your system even faster and avoiding whatever you're getting when you're pinning the shit. So
I have heard of some people that swish it around and actually spit it out.
Yeah, that's what they did with the Duchess cocktail.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
I would take that 10% orally and swallow it with grapefruit to prevent the first pass in the liver a little bit with the naringin in the naringin, right? So that inhibits a little bit of the breakdown with the CYP3A4 enzymes. So
other couple of notes I thought we could mention, Steve, on healthy cycling. We need to talk about the shutting down your HPG for below 300, which is a good topic. But I just want to mention briefly synergies between compounds. Another way to really reduce the total androgen load you need. Like, we have this. What's that website, Steve? The molecular one I sent you that you can test.
Oh.
So there's an algorithm.
Swiss Target or whatever.
Yeah, there's Swiss Target. So just for the audience to know, if you look at these molecules, softwares that have to predict where these molecules can attach to show widely differing receptors that they attach to. So there must be a lot of synergies between these things. So I think that's one of the values also of using short-acting things intermittently.
Oh yeah, when I first saw that software, like obviously some of it I imagine is quite speculative, but when I saw it being broken down, like that was some of the guys who work at Merrick were the ones who introduced me to it for the first time, like I don't know, almost 2 years ago now. Yeah. So that was when I first started communicating with those guys. I was like, this was before my injectable SARMs experiment too. And they were like showing basically breaking down which compounds are the most effective AR agonists, and then we'd be like subcategorize them. Which ones are the most effective GR antagonists? Subcategorize that. Which ones interact the most or the least with the MR mineralocorticoid receptors? Subcategorize that. Which ones have the most psychoactive effects? Subcategorize that. And then you would create like a cycle based on leveraging a little bit of like each column. So that was like the idea of it. And I think it works, seems to be the most logical approach to cycle design. So I have like a Word document from like way back in the day when I used to talk like every day with these guys. And I still do here and there, because a lot of them, some of them work for Merrick, that are like the most intelligent guys that I've met before. And they, I have like this document that like categorizes every compound into like where it makes the most sense to deploy it.
Interesting. Yeah. I was thinking of doing something similar. Yeah. So also, last thing I want to mention, if you guys are cycling, be conscious of psychological effects. I recently found a very interesting paper that finally explained why I've been noticing. Basically, the easiest way to explain it is that guys who've been on Deca for long periods act like bitches. And I just didn't, I don't know how to explain it. They're just like a little bit, I don't know how to explain it, but no, it's not an offensive thing, but I've always been wondering, what the hell is it about Deca? And then I found a paper showing that processing in the brain, when you're in a progesterone dominant state, like in the luteal phase of a woman's monthly cycle, processing becomes less global and more local. Whereas when the testosterone is dominant and progesterone is lower, processing is more globally oriented, which means I explained this on a podcast I did recently. But have you ever had a girlfriend or your wife, Steve, that tells you a story, and the story starts slowly, and it's like halfway into the story, you don't know what the story is about, but you're following along with the story, but they never did a headliner or a topic at the top, so you knew what it was about. When a guy tells you a story, it's usually like a guy usually tells you a story. He's like, this is the topic, this is what happened, and then he goes into detail. Usually a lady goes into the story, it starts somewhere and just goes, and you have to figure it out along the way. I think that this is the difference between global and local processing and the hemispheric stuff. So just to keep in mind, the hormones you're on long-term may affect the way your brain works and your personality.
I think
I know several people who run trendy around, and they're messed up in the brain.
Yeah, I always wondered about, so obviously there definitely is literature to support that like heightened progestogenic activity is associated with like way higher likelihood of being homosexual and like all these different things. But then above and beyond that, like estrogen deprivation too, I think plays into some of it potentially with DECA only stuff. Now, I don't know if that's at all dosages, or if that's like, even if you were using something concurrently as like a D-ball base or something, or a estrogen base on its own. But, you know, it's definitely something fucking going on. I don't know.
It also, I mean, if it is really progesterone, it may have something to do with progesterone binding to that enzyme that creates dihydro progesterone and dihydrotestosterone, or the precursor to alpha-galone, whatever it was.
5-alpha reductase, or the hydrogenase?
No, the hydrogenase. What the other one? Yeah, exactly.
No,
5-alpha reductase actually. Okay. No, not 5-alpha reductase. It's another enzyme, not 5-alpha reductase. But what I recall is basically progesterone has a higher affinity for it, and that enzyme either is before 5-alpha reductase or something. Basically, may cause less testosterone DHT synthesis from testosterone. So there may be an interplay. But I think that the progesterone receptor signaling has very, genomic and like a lot of psychological effects in the brain. You can see it in women. Estrogen is declining and changing also, but progesterone has very particular effects. And by the way, what you're talking about is a homoerotic, I forgot what they called it, but when progesterone levels are higher in men, they have like the more likelihood to see something as homoerotic.
Oh, yeah, it's funny because I have some, like, how I do like the Reddit, like trend horror stories on my channel. And there was one, it was like, I forget, it was DECA makes me a cuckold or something. And it was like some guy who he likes watching, like when he takes it, he likes imagining guys like fucking his wife, whereas when he's on just tests, like that doesn't happen. Like he noticed like different kinds of like weird fetishes like cropping up when he was on nandrolone versus when he was on test. And there was like similar stories with like trenbolone as well. And I imagine that, I don't know if it had something to do with, I imagine a lot of it was the progestogenic activity. And then I don't know what else, like directly or indirectly, it could be estrogen, but.
I remember when I was using trenbolone, you do get a little bit of deviant tendencies, right? Or you're a little bit extreme sometimes in the sexual department, but that's why I stopped 7 years ago.
Not me. I was useless.
No, not you. No, I was insatiable at that time.
But Lenny calls what Derek just described, Big Lenny, that guy, he calls it the subspace. And he told me personally that steroids, phenibut, and especially GHB, which causes a highest increase in allopregnanolone synthesis, puts him in the subspace. And it's a different kind of sexual attraction that he gets from the high testosterone levels. So you may really be right. It's very interesting to hypothesize on this because, by the way, Derek, I don't know if you know this. I've written an article a long time ago on, it's called Gay, Born That Way or Not, or something like that, Made That Way. Because, there's this phrase that gay people were born that way. Yeah. And if you look at the genetic evidence of this, there is none. Like there has been so much pressure in academia to find a genetic polymorphism associated with being gay, and they can't. There's like nothing except this progesterone stuff mostly.
I would imagine like prenatal exposure to whatever hormone profile is present is going to dictate a lot of your progression, but then also your own steroidogenesis as you grow up.
And outside factors. I mean, how you grow up, I mean,
it's
a lot of things that change your preference over time, maybe you got hurt by a girl and, decided to switch preferences. So a lot of reasons why people end up that way,
Now, Steve, tell us why about this 300 sub 300 milligram cycle. So people ask me this a lot when I'm with Boston. So I get a lot of questions about using a 200 milligram or 300 milligram cycle. And I have my own view, which is not contrary to your views at all, as we've discovered in our discussions. But I think we should expand on it. So the idea is this.